Century Speaks. Local people look back over their lives in the 20th century. Programme 2, House and Home.
A terraced house right in the middle of the row at Coot Lane. An old-fashioned fireplace, black lead fireplace, with a cornice on the top. And Grandma used to crochet her covers. I can see it now, 2 pot dogs on either side. No bath, of course, no hot water, of course, no inside toilet, of course, or anything. It was outside toilet. You had to boil your water, whatever you wanted. And of course on a Friday night I used to go down, well, Grandma's, and we used to have a tin bath in front of the fire. Summer, no. Oh no, I didn't like it. But in winter I used to look forward to that tin bath, because the fire in the grate, Phil, I can see it now, the flint, and she always used to have a good fire when it was my bath night, as I called it, and you could hear the old black kettle outside, and you could hear it whistling outside. Oh, it was absolutely marvellous. And Grandma's rocking chair aside at table. Now, there was only one thing that I didn't like. When we got out at bath, she had this great big, whatever it was, towel or anything, and she'd say to me, "Now sit down there and get this all dry proper and take bath away." And they had a horsehair sofa with a bow on the end. I hated it, Phil, because when I sat in there, the horsehair pricked me bum.
I was born at 1st of October 1898. And you know, things were a lot harder then than what they are now. A lot. I mean, with no electric, with no gas. Everything had to be cooked on fire or its oven. So, I mean, they don't know they're born today. There's electric and gas, you know. And we had, if we wanted, in winter time, my father used to kill a pig. And he'd cut some slices off at night, you know, for his breakfast morning after. And we had a Dutch oven. Now, have you ever seen one of them? Well, they're a little round one, and you put them up front at fire. And it drips off dust fat, and it's cooked round fire. Well, you have to get a pretty good fire before you can, you know, get them cooking. And then we used to have some dip butties, you know. We weren't bothered about bacon, but it were dip butties we had, and they were good. And we started work at 6 o'clock. We had a boiler at one side at Foven, and Foven at t'other. And one time we had a what they call it a tap. And my father would come in, and he'd take hot water out for cattle, you know, to mix the food, and he'd left tap running, and he never told us. And when we looked, the house was swelling, we'd to get swelling brush and swell it out. You know, we could have played pop with my father, but we daren't do.
It's a black lead and all that, and they used to put the fire irons down and clean them and put the fire irons down for a weekend, and then used to take them up at Monday and put them under the couch. And same with Sunday rug. Used to have a rug for Sunday and one for weekday, but Sunday rug went under the couch with fire irons. Yeah, black lead and all. Well, these young uns know nothing about that.
From Monday to Saturday, we had a carpet on hearth, but not on floor, you know. We used to have hearth rug scrubbed with a scrubbing stone. And then we we went up a peg and we put a hearth rug down. And then at Friday, we had a carpet, coconut matting, and we put that down. And that stopped down while Monday. And at Monday night, when we come from work, we had to take that carpet up.
Was it dusty?
Eh? Were it dusty? No, not much. No, it were.
You know, well, we had a flag floor. Now then we had matting, some matting, and that was put down at Saturday till Sunday night, and then it was taken up, well, with bare floor all week, bare flags, you see. And we had a rug, well, we used to peg that rug ourselves. We had a frame, and we had some Essen, and my mother used to fasten it all round this frame, and we all used to sit round, pegging. And she used to get old coats and wash them all, and we had to cut them all up in strips and peg and make a lovely rug. But when you come to shake it, it weighed heavy in the flag floor. It was full of muck, you couldn't get it out, you know. We used to, three of us used to go out and shake it and talk about dust. Anyway, we had to put up with it, and we never got out posh when I was down there.
We didn't even have water. We had a well in the yard. Cows drank out of it and we drank out of it. And well, it was a trough. It wasn't a well. It was a big, as big as that settee, a big trough in the yard, because when we had cows, I mean, they just drank out of this trough. That were for them as well as us. So we didn't tail anything, though. That we cleaned, that trough was washed, scrubbed out every week, and that was another big job to do. All these things made work, didn't they? I don't know how we do now. We don't have any work, do we? Not like that. I mean, your toilet was outside with little nail with newspaper on, and that was to empty. You did it once a year. Before Good Friday, that was emptied. That was a nasty job, and then a lot of lime put in, and I suppose it were good for the land.
Well, it were damned horrible. It were horrible. And then they'd take these here and they'd go at fields and empty it at fields. It feels just raw sewage there like that, and there were masses of birds and everything coming down here. I'll never forget them things and all that. I used to think, what a horrible thing. There were no point of disinfectants in them days. My mum used to go down sometime and spray a load of bleach over the place, you know. And there'd be about nine or 10 using the same toilet.
And we shared toilet, you went round back. There were 4 toilets. You'd a cotton bobbin in the house, and anybody who went to the toilet, if you looked and bobbin weren't there, somebody's at the toilet, so you had to wait. But we used to share. There were 6 houses that shared 4 toilets. Well, no more. They were back-to-backs. So there were 12 houses that shared 4 toilets. Aye. And, of course, if bobbin were missing off through, somebody were at the toilet. If you ran it house and you wanted to go to the toilet, you'd look at who, cotton bobbin, somebody's already there. So you used to have to wait, and often you'd go round, and they'd all be being used, Jack, and you had to wait. Aye. It would be 100 yards of a walk to the toilets round back, wouldn't it? Through a passage back to back, right back at the houses, yeah. It really were.
So you had to trail out rain, hail or snow, pitch dark at night, very frightening for a child. Frightening, because it was quite a big hole. Yeah. Oh, and especially at night. I mean, they never thought of putting a light and giving you a candle or anything like that. Used to sit there in the dark, absolutely terrified as a child. I mean, I just wouldn't have liked my children to go through anything like that. I wouldn't. And I'm glad they haven't had to.
Very few were baths. So we had a tin bath it were at my sister's. I lived opposite my another sister, an older sister. And so she used to say, all right, well, you can have tin bath, but you'll have to take your turn because there's a few of us share it. So we called it the walking bath. It used to be walking up and down to my other sisters and to my sister's neighbours, so that there were at least 5 or 6 that used in bath. One night you'd wait your turn, and one night it'd be yours. We all used to take turn, didn't we? So this bath, of course, I might be in my sister's house and there'd be a bit of a rumble. Now, what's that going on? Oh, it's somebody's taking bath. And somebody'd be taking bath, wouldn't they? And you'd hear it walk, oh, it's Pat next door, it's their turn tonight, you know. And Mrs. Petroff, Peter and his wife, they used to use bath. And I think nearly all neighbours used it, didn't they, Jack? Did you have a bathroom when you moved to Fern Street?
When we moved to Fern.
Ferns, you had a bathroom, you'd finish with bath then, you could leave it. Yeah. But did you have a bath on Cleveland Street? No. So you used to trail that up half.
We were 32 at tin bath.
Well, I must have been 5th when I moved out at last. And so we used to get it.
To one house a night.
Oh, yes.
Because all the family had to have a turn with this bath, so it were all night of a job.
As a young boy, I were last. There were 5 sisters and me, and my mother were very particular. So we had his own bath. I don't know how the devil we got it, but we had his own bath at first house, didn't we? And my mother used it for washing as well as for front of fire. And I know I used to be last after my sisters. And Sunday nights were a special night because you had your good bath, all of you, and then my mother used to get a comb. She had Durback soap. We all got our heads washed, choose what, with Durback soap. And she had these combs, bone combs, and she used to sit us down above a newspaper and comb your hair and comb your hair and comb your hair, and she'd make you keep your head down till she'd combed it many times over to make sure you know lice, which there were about, because very often she'd say, there's one, get him. And she'd let you snick it with your fingernail and it cracked. They used to crack. Isn't it true, Ray? Yeah. She used to say, there's one, snick it. There you are, snick it now. And I'd crack it with my thumbnail and it'd click, snick like that. So that made you suited, because you were sat there all that time having your head scraped, hoping, oh, I hope we catch one or two. And occasionally, of course, you got 1 or 2 and got to snick them. But I don't know if my sisters ever did, but they watched me more than you, I think, did my mother?
I think probably the thing was, if one got them, chances were some other sisters were going to get these head lice. And so everybody dreaded this Durback comb and oil of, I think it was sassafras that she used to plaster you with to kill any eggs, any nits. And then, of course, everybody had an argument as to who picked these head lice up first. Say, well, you must have got them because I didn't have them till I slept with you, and that's how it went on. And
of course, we all slept in one bed, didn't we?
Yeah.
We all slept, 5, 6 of us. Oh, Dolly and Stella might have been on landing.
Dolly and Stella that were on the landing.
And my mother.
And my mother were on the landing, but on a single bed, and the rest of us were all top and tail in one double bed.
In one double bed.
That's right.
And that would be like 1944, 45.
Imagine 4 in a bed. We slept. 4 girls in a bed. A single bed. We actually slept in a single bed in my parents' bedroom, because there were 2 boys who had to share a bedroom. An older girl who had her own bedroom, it were only like a box room, and 4 girls in a single bed, 2 at top and 2 at bottom.
Most beds were more comfortable than this today. Most of them were spring mattress. You know, even though they were a stretcher spring, and if you look at the old iron bedsteads, they were higher off the floor than what this modern day technique is today. And most of the beds, I mean, this idea now we have slumberland mattresses and stuff like that. Originally, when people first got married in the 20s and 30s, they started off with a bed tick, and they went to the local farmer and they filled it with chaff. Most of the beds were based on chaff or cut straw, and it were only the posh people who came along later as bought flocks. They would buy flocks and fill the tick with flocks. This idea of having spring interiors, you know, this is a modern innovation. That's how the old end went. The thing with bed and all the other thing with beds was when we came up. Just imagine our lot. We lived in a little 2 up, 2 down, and there were 7 of us, plus my mother and father. You know, everybody slept bread and butter fashion. You know, there weren't enough.
It's true, yeah.
You know, they were head and tail. Lads at one end, girls at the other, big lads, you know, little lads. They were different idea than today. This idea, you know, he or she must have her own space, you know, I mean, you had plenty of space when we were kids. You were punched through the door to go and find it.
Cold? My mother used to put a plate in something and get it hot, and then she'd wrap it in a bit of old blanket and that were to put his feet on in bed, you know. Oh, and it was lovely. But there were no central heating, there were nothing like that.
You had thick frost patterns on the inside of your window, didn't you? Beautiful patterns, ferns and snowflowers, and it was so thick you couldn't get it off. That would stay on all winter or throughout the cold spell, wouldn't it? And I was saying how in the morning when you woke up, when you were warm in your bed, you'd drag all your clothes into bed with you and warm them up on your body before you got out and put them on. That's what I used to do. I can remember back to a time when there was a fire in the kitchen, so that we must have cooked on a kitchen range at that time, because I remember there being a fire in a black-leaded grate, and I remember tins of bread, you know, tins with dough rising in them all around inside the big black fender, waiting to go in the fireside oven, and the big bread crock that was baked in. And then there was a stone sink under a window where we had to go and wash up. And we had 2 rooms, apart from the kitchen, which was quite small, and you would come in from the back garden into the kitchen, and then we'd 2 rooms, what we called a dining room, but that we lived in that through the week, and then the front room, that, you know, the front room we only ever went in on a Sunday, or Christmas Day, or when the vicar called, he had to be taken in the front room. Now, on a Sunday, my dad would light the fire in the front room instead of in the back room where we lived all week, which, when you look back now, you think what a stupid idea that was, because the back room stayed warm all the time. You know, the fire would die down, and when you came down in the morning, it was warm. But the front room was only had a fire lit in it once a week, and it was never warmed up till you went to bed. You were never warm till you were going to bed. Plus, you got to go back into the dining room, which was by now cold, for all your meals. So you spent Sundays completely frozen.
And in that parlour, it was like going into magic. Because there was the old-fashioned fireplace, but down the side of the fireplace was those different coloured tiles down the side. Now, in that room, I can never, ever and I've searched my mind, I can never, ever remember a fire being lit in that room. Never. And on the mantelpiece, my Uncle Joe used to have a fretwork machine, and he made models. And on that fireplace, in the middle of it, in Grandma's parlour, was this big bus. And he always used to say it was a Fishwick's bus, where Uncle Joe was a conductor on Fishwick's buses. Oh, and I loved that bus, but we hadn't a touch. We'd not to touch anything. And our table under the window, she had a great big aspidistra plant. Lace curtains, of thick lace curtains, of course. But that aspidistra plant, I had to go in that parlour, no shoes on, clean socks on, go in there with a rag, with a little bit, I don't know what she put on it, whether it was oil, I don't know what oil, but it was oil, just to go over the leaves. And Grandma'd come back in and inspect it to see if I'd touched every leaf. Now, in front of the fireplace there was an old peg rug. No carpets then in them days. Lino round. Now, there was another sofa in there, but that wasn't a horsehair sofa. I don't know what it was, because I used to sit in there hours. But it wasn't only that. I don't know what it was. It was the smell. I can smell it now. Mansion polish.
And we had a front room, we had a parlour. And in that parlour, from me coming at 2, my mum had a hide suite in there. Nobody ever went in, Phil. The only time you went into that parlour was birthdays and Christmas. So furniture, 40 years on, were just like brand new.
Never been touched.
It's as if it stood still in time. Now a lot of people were like this.
Oh, they were.
The best furniture were in that front room, but that front room never got used, did it?
It wasn't for anything. It wasn't for anything, Phil. You know how these days where people say, oh yeah, keeping up with the Joneses, she's got another this and she's got another that. Now, I think it was a status symbol in them days. I think it was a case of, well, you can go at parlour if you want, like, and you can look one up, but it was shut off. It was taboo. It was like as if you could have put a card out door and said no admittance. You know what I mean? If you was allowed, like I was, every week, only to do that aspidistra, nothing else, you felt like you were entering unknown territory. You know what I mean? Only the fact that when you went, you knew what was in there. But nothing would ever move, Phil. That bus I've told you about was there. It's aspidistra. If I'd have moved it when I'd been done, it would put back. Everything had to be, you know what I mean? Even peg rug. I don't know what it was, because one day, of course, we'd had this peg rug out and battered it on clothesline outside, and they were a weight. And we took it back and put it in parlour. And of course Grandma came in to inspect what you'd done. And I remember that day as if it were now. She said, now hold on a bit, turn that rug round. So I looked at her. I said, turn it. She says, turn that rug round. That corner there, it's not right. Now I couldn't see what that corner was any different to the other 3. But Grandma knew. Are you with me? And I tell you what she had in her, and I didn't like it, Phil. She had a stuffed bird in one of them, like a globe over it, and she had it on her table where this aspidistra were, and I tried my best not to look at it, except to be looking at me, and that's one thing I hated in that room.
There are 2 main reasons for front rooms. This is from my own experience of talking to old people in Barnoldswick. One is status. It doesn't matter whether you use it or not. The fact is that in order to have status, you've got to have a front room, or as it became later, the lounge. I always remember, it's funny how things change. You call it a lounge, but anyway, this is the front room, because this is at the front, the other's at the back. And of course, but the main reason for it, you'd got to have somewhere to put the body. Now don't forget that funerals in a place like Barnoldswick, you didn't get buried during the week, you got buried on a Saturday. Saturday was funeral day. I always remember somebody telling me when the flu epidemic was on after the First World War, Saturday was so busy, there were funerals just going through the town, one after another, all day. Because you didn't bury during the week because people couldn't afford to be off work. And of course the Church of England didn't bury on Sunday. So Saturday was funeral day. So if somebody died, say, on a Saturday, middle of June, heat wave, you've got to have somewhere to keep them. On the table with the cloth draped down over the side and the bucket of Jay's fluid underneath to try and mask the smell. Because it wasn't a case of embalming and things like that then. People just couldn't afford it. Nowadays, it's a matter of course it's done. You know, everything's got to be hygienic. But then they just give them a wash, put them in the best suit, banged them in coffin, put the wig on, whatever there was, and nailed the lid down and hope for the best. And the front room was a good place to do it because you keep the window open and the door shut.
I was in the St Thomas's choir, and each Christmas the choir boys, we had to go singing round to houses that were definitely Church of England people, and at a lot of houses we were invited in. And I lived in a terrace house in Newbridge, and some of these houses we went into, I'd never seen anything so fabulous in my life. I didn't realise property like that existed. And one particular house we went to, at Christmas Day, we always went round Carr Road. And Carr Road, all the big houses in Carr Road, nearly all of them were big manufacturers. There was just one which we went to, which was Astley's, which had a big brewery in Nelson. But one in particular that we went to belonged to Herbert Hartley. Now, Herbert Hartley owned 5 cinemas in Nelson, and he invited us in to sing, and he put us in the billiard room, and there they had a full-size billiard table. I'd never seen a more beautiful room, with all leather chairs all the way round and lighting. It was absolutely beautiful. But these houses that we visited when we were singing, they all had big gardens and greenhouses and drives and garages and hallways. One in particular I remember we went to was down Ribblesdale Place, and we went in there, and they had a big minstrel gallery, and they had some children, and they used to get these children up to stand on this minstrel gallery while we all stood in the hall and sang for them.
My mother would do the washing in an old gas boiler, which we're lucky enough to have, at the old gas boiler, and when she'd finished the washing, 2 of us would carry the boiler, well, 2, my sister and my mother would carry the boiler to the front door, open the tap, let the water come out. She'd have the yard brush out, or the long stiff brush, and it would swill the yard as when you'd had a bath. The bath water wasn't thrown down the slop stone, down the sink. It was used, and it swilled the yard. She'd get the yard brush out, swill it away, and of course next morning she'd possibly brush off with a soft brush and whiten the steps, because they did like the steps. They did like a line on the front of the steps. They were very, very suited with the steps when they were donkey stoned up.
And back streets, cobbles, there were no grass, everybody dug it up. Any grass growing in between, there they were with an old knife, scraping it out. Yeah.
The doorsteps that you see in Todmorden, I don't think they clean them from one year end to the other. They don't seem to mop the doorsteps. Oh, it used to be a right disgrace if your doorstep wasn't clean when we were married. Oh, yes. Oh, Todmorden, and we used to Yellowstone the flags all in front of the house. Get down on your hands and knees. And then you'd have done it about 10 minutes and somebody'd go past with a pram. That's the thing that I look at, you see, when we've always been that way. I think, well, the youth nowadays, as I said, if we hadn't a clean doorstep, well, you would classed as dirty. If you hadn't mopped your doorstep. They don't seem to bother now. For all these modern convenience and that, I don't think they're any better off, do you?
I have no bathroom. I have an immersion heater, and my toilet's outside. It's a water toilet, but it's outside, and they're more or less disgusted with me.
So, if I might ask you, how do you manage when it comes to bath night?
Bath night's kitchen, and it's no problem. I have a back brush in there, And I don't make a mess. I've no bath to clean. Mind you,
What do you use?
well, I use a plastic bowl in the sink. Then I take it down to the floor and I do my legs. I don't miss an inch. I don't miss an inch. My mother never had a bath. She lived to be 88. You know, they're soft today. They want too much heat and all these showers and all this stuff what they put on their body. I couldn't be bothered with all that sort of thing. I don't look so bad, do I, it?
You smell as sweet as a daisy.
Well, that's been my life. And folks say, well, we're disgusted with you. Well, I said, it's nothing to do with you. It's my life. I've never known anything else. My toilet were outside at my mother's and hers were a Kipler. But I've been brought up like that.
Do you use a jerry?
Yes. I bought a new one week, and one mum sold it to me. She said it'll look nice with that, with flowers in. Yeah, I said, excuse me, but I said this is being bought for what it was made for. She said, is it? You're not putting plants in? No, I'm putting something else in. So that's how I manage.
Well, I wanted a lot of space. That was the main thing. I always wanted a lot of space. I knew exactly what rooms I wanted that I didn't have in my other homes, and ideally I wanted a lovely utility, a nice study, just lots of room really to move and to put everything. Big spacious kitchen. I wanted 4 bedrooms because I wanted a lovely guest bedroom with an ensuite on it. If anybody came to stay, I wanted them to be comfortable. We've ended up with 5 bedrooms, and I don't know what we're going to do with it because it should have been a garage, but we decided to turn it into another bedroom. I wanted a nice big lounge because wherever we'd been we'd always had small lounges, so I wanted a large big lounge. I don't like having to eat in my kitchen, so I wanted a separate place to eat. So we've now got sort of like an separate eating place plus a formal dining room, and those are all the things I wanted.
I would not go back to a terraced house, ever. Even if it were central heated, no desire to ever go back to a terraced house. My mother used to say there were nothing good about the good old days. And my mother never had these luxuries. But she, she thought along them lines. But give me 1999 any time. Definitely. I mean, we never had nothing like this lovely cosy settee and, warmth, hot water on tap. Hot water there all the time. My washer, I can just open the door and throw my washing in and shut the door and forget about it. My microwave, I can warm my milk, I don't have to warm it in the pan and clean that up. So, and I've even started, I'll hold my hand up and say, I've even started buying convenience food a lot of the time now. And so has my youngest sister though. She said, why did we waste all them hours in the kitchen? I mean, you can buy everything. You can buy everything ready and all, like your vegetables already peeled, and you just, prick your bag and put them in the microwave, and they taste wonderful because they haven't been boiled in water, and you can get everything just all ready for you, like, so you can have a meal ready in about 15 minutes, where years ago you'd have slaved in the kitchen for hours to make the very same meal. So I love modern times. I really do.